welcome back. We have been looking at conceptual dependency theory, and by now we have understood that the way to handle language is to create a dictionary in which for every English word you will have a conceptualization which would be stored there. That conceptualization would have empty slots, and as you read more of the sentence in which that word occurs, you will fill up those slots uh, based on, as we will see, maybe some semantic match or some rules about who is the actor and who is the object and so on. So, we saw this word threaten, which says that X communicates something to Y, as a result of which, in fact, we have not even said that it communicates to Y. X simply communicates something, maybe it just makes an announcement, and Y comes to believe that if Y does something in the future, then X will do something as a result of that, as a result of which Y would get hurt. So, here is a specific threat. I threatened him with a broken nose. So, you can see that the basic scaffolding is still the same. We still have this same thing, that I communicate something and so on, as a result of which he came to believe that if conditionally in the future he does something, then I will do something, this thing. So, let us look at it in a little bit detail now. I communicated from, the recipient is he and I am the communicator. The object of my communication, which is the conceptualization, is that this whole thing, that I will do something or Y will do something, as a result of which the nose would be in a state of being broken and the nose would be possessed by him. As a result of which he comes to believe this whole thing, as we have seen earlier, that if he does something which is X conditionally in the future, I will do something which is Y, as a result of which his nose would be broken essentially. So, this is simply the representation of the word threaten filled with some additional information from the sentence, which says that I am the actor and he is the object of my communication, and there is some broken nose involved somewhere, which is a causal relation. So, here is another explicit threat. Again, the structure is the same, except that the action has changed. Now, I am saying that I will do something with the hammer. And he comes to believe that if he does something, then I will do something with the hammer, as a result of which he will get hurt essentially. So, this is that from I to he, the hammer, whatever I am doing would be in the, from I to him. So, advise is a similar word, in the sense that you are communicating something. So, X communicate the following, that X believes, so believe is like an action, the following, which is inside this here, that if Y does something, then Y would be pleased essentially conditionally in the future. So, here is an example. I advise him to try the twice cooked pork. So, again I communicated in his direction, and it said that I believe something, and what I believe is this whole thing, that if he ate twice cooked pork, then he would be pleased. So, liking, we said earlier, I like books. So, very often we can represent this in two different ways. One is that if in the future I were to ingest ice cream, then in the future I would be pleased. That is just representing the fact that whenever I eat ice cream, I feel happy. But we can also say that I can conceptualize this fact that whenever in the future I eat ice cream, then I am happy. The same fact, but I can think about that fact. X thinks that X will be pleased if X eats ice cream. So, here is the word want has a specific time sense. So, I want, if I say, it basically means that if X does something, then Y would be happy. If you want to say I wanted it, then I would say in the past I was thinking that if X did something in the future, I would be happy. The pleased and happy I am using as synonyms. John wants it, but he does not realize it. We do not know who the speaker is, somebody is making this utterance. So, there is a speaker and the same want structure is there. John wants it, but the only difference is that John is not able to conceptualize it, that he wants it essentially. He hit Bill's car, but he does not know it. So, there are two things. One is that he actually hit the car which was Bill's car, but he is not able to visualize this whole, the same thing which is there on the top is there here also. He is not able to visualize that, conceptualize that. So, remembering is thinking about essentially. So, I remember the time we ate oysters. So, remembering is by entrancing it from long term memory to conscious processor. So, I conceptualize that we ate oysters and the instrumental act for doing this was that I entranced the fact that we ate. So, this should the object of entrance, that we ingested oysters, and I am entrancing this whole thing from my long term memory to my conscious processor. That is how I remembered this fact that we ate oysters. So, we have been saying communicate all this while, but basically it is entrance actually in CD theory. So, say or telling somebody something is also entrance, except that there is an instrumental act of speaking words from X to Y. Perception is also entrance when you perceive something. So, from a sense organ to the conscious processor, whatever, it could be an event, it could be a state. Learn something is that you move it from your conscious processor to your immediate memory. Remembering, we have already seen, is moving from the long term memory to the conscious processor. Forgetting is unable to be able to move it from long term memory to the conscious processor. seeing as conceptualizing. When I say I saw John eating soup, then I can think about John ingesting soup essentially, which is this thing, and I can do that by the instrumental act of entrancing this whole object that John is eating soup from the eyes to my conscious processor, and this act of seeing I am doing by another instrumental act, which is look at. So, look at was in one version of CD theory, attend I would be in the current version that we are talking about. So, it could have been attend. So, attend I to the scene of John and soup. So, various versions of this act conceptualize. Consider is to think of it in the future, ponder is to simply think about it, dream is to think about while you are sleeping, wonder is to wonder whether it will happen or not. So, love and hate are states. I think people say they are two sides of the same coin. So, you can think of love as saying that whenever X thinks of Y, X is in a state of being in love, and likewise for hate essentially. So, you are thinking about X is thinking about Y, and X is in a state of either being in a state of being in love or state of being in hate. There is another sense of the word think. I believe that John is a fool, or I think that John is a fool. So, what you are saying here is that there is this conceptualization that John is a fool, but that is in a location which is my memory possessed by me essentially. So, the conceptualization John is a fool is located in my memory. Now, if an software agent has to deal with other people or agents, for example, in a computer game is the example that I am using here. The software agent or any agent in particular can only see the actions of other agents. So, there is some things like intentions and goals and plans and so on, you cannot see them essentially, they are often left unstated. So, for an intelligent game agent for example, actions are the keyboard strokes, it needs to understand your intentions from them somehow essentially. So, you need that knowledge about how actions are related to plans and how plans are related to goals and how goals can be the intentions of agents and so on. So, goals and plans are not going to be linguistic entities, they are going to be what we call as knowledge structures. We will have a very passing look at goals and plans later. They are not often stated explicitly, instead what we see is a sequence of actions essentially. We will see this connection between actions and plans and goals later. So, coming back to other words, conceptual words. So, when you say Fred believes John, then there are two senses of this word believes. One is that John entrants something, this structure in the red, to Fred, as a result of which that structure has gone and sat in Fred's memory essentially. So, just like we say that I believe that John is a fool or something, Fred believes something which, but that something is what John has told him. So, Fred tells something to John and John puts it in his memory. Another sense of the word believes is that John tells something to Fred and Fred already has it in his memory eventually. John is saying something to someone and Fred also believes that essentially. So, Fred believes whatever John is saying. The earlier sense was there was a causal relation between Fred telling this to John, John telling this to Fred, and then Fred believing that essentially. Here John is telling it to someone, but Fred also believes the same thing. But Fred must put in his memory, right, if he does that. So, we can model this at different levels of detail. So, John is entrancing something, whatever that something is, this event 1 from John to the conscious processor of Fred. So, Fred thinks about it, the same thing, then he builds this formula and adds it to the immediate memory essentially, as a result of which it is lying in his immediate memory. Deciding to believe it, Fred must create the structure in his memory essentially. So, if you want to model inference making, then if you know a certain set of facts and from that you infer another fact, then you can model it using mBuild. In the example that we just saw, there was only one this thing, whatever John told Fred, he mBuild and added it to his memory, but you can model inferences also in a similar fashion. So, the physical actions that CD theory uses are the following. We have move own body part, that means only sentient beings can move their parts. Propel is to apply force, ingest is eating, expel is output, p-trans is change of location, grasp is grasp. We have seen that. If a p-trans happens, then you should infer that the object ceases to be at the origin location and exists at the destination location. So, this is the kind of inference you should do when you see p-trans essentially. Likewise, for A-trans, if I give you the book, then you have the book, but not in M-trans. If I tell you something, that formula is in your head also, in my head also. This relation between actions and change, we will see a little bit later when we looked at event calculus, which is a kind of a logical way of inferring things which happen. So, for example, if Sudeshna went to the canteen, then Sudeshna reached the canteen. These kind of inferences is the kind of inferences we are talking about here. So, if you want to say I walked to the cafeteria, the key act is p-trans and you must infer that I am at the cafeteria. So, I p-trans myself in the direction of the cafeteria. Because I use the word walked, there is an instrumental act of moving and I am moving my feet in the direction of the cafeteria. So, John threw a rock at Sam. So, throw is p-trans in the air by doing propel. So, p-trans object rock from John to Sam and the instrumental act is propel in the air, the object rock in the direction of Sam. And P says that this is in the past tense. If you want to say John threw the pencil to Sam, so to is modeled as A-trans here. So, it is different from at Sam. So, you throw a rock at Sam, you do not want to give it to him, but when you say throw a pencil to Sam, you want to give it to him. So, everything else is the same that we saw earlier, but the high level conceptualization is A-trans, that John A-trans the pencil to Sam and he did it by throwing it to Sam which we have already seen is P-trancing in the air using propel. John hit Mary. We have been using the word hit, but you can use propel now. We do not know hit with what. So, we are just using something called x in the direction of Mary. As a result of which x and Mary come into physical contact. If you wanted to say John punched Mary, then the object of propel is fist, which is possessed by John. Again, it is in the direction of Mary. And you can also guess that there is an instrumental act of move in which John moves his fist towards Mary. So, all that is more detail about the fact that he used his fist. The concluding thing is still the same, that the fist possessed by John came into physical contact with Mary. So, here is some more violence here. John hit Mary by throwing a stick to her. So, by now we are familiar with all these throwing actions and so on. So, essentially John propelled the stick and then he did this whole thing by propelling in the air and throwing it, moving his hand which contained the stick, and he did that by grasping the stick and so on. In the air is missing from here, but we can add it somewhere, because throwing involves being in the air. If we said a car hit Mary, then we know that there is a propel action, and the object is the car and the direction is Mary. So, car and Mary came into physical contact. We do not know who the agent is essentially. When I say I move the table to the corner, then it is possible that I P-tranced the table by using propel, but it could also be that I asked somebody to do it for me essentially. So, if you want to capture the meaning of the sentence, I move the table to the corner, the best way to do it is I did something as a result of which the table went into a state of being in the corner. Okay. So, we will take a break here and pay some attention to how parsing is done from English to conceptual dependency.